including those watching via the live stream. It's 10 a.m. and it's time for me to open this morning's hearing session on matter 2 relating to the duty to cooperate. For those of you who have not met me before, my name is Louise Nurser. I'm the planning inspector. I've been appointed by the Secretary of State to examine Kensington and Chelsea's local plan in regards with soundness. Before we begin, can everyone check that they can hear me? And can you please also turn your mobile phones off? I've been informed there's going to be no fire alarm today, so if there is a fire, can you follow the council who will take us down the stairs? Toilets are outside. I expect to break if the session runs on for that long, around mid-morning. Is anyone intending to record the event other than the live stream? No? Okay. Just in terms of the actual way the event runs, it's a formal hearing session run by myself. I lead the discussion and I'm asking people to respond. And I'll broadly follow the matters, issues and questions which have already circulated. And in terms of the way of ensuring that I know you want to speak, obviously in this particular instance there are not exactly a lot of people, so I don't think there'll be people clamouring, but if there is an issue, I would like just to put your Toblerone on. Call it a Toblerone, it's tropical. Okay. Let's start. Morning everyone. I'm going to go through all my questions. So the question is, number 17, have all statements of common ground been provided consistent with the requirements of the framework and the associated practice guidance? I'm aware that the council has actually, at my behest, put together a statement of common ground with Historic England. Perhaps the council could quickly run through that.
So, yes, on your request, Madam Inspector, we have put together a statement of common ground with Historic England. And in their hearing statement, Historic England had raised some points with regards to the site, Kensal Canal site opportunity area. And the main issues that they raised were concerning building heights, but then they responded to the question about little modifications to the site allocation. And so that's what the statement of common ground then focused on. So we've agreed with Historic England that we can propose some modifications to the site allocation to clarify the concerns that they had. The first of which was...
I'm sorry, I didn't misunderstood what I was meaning to say, was in terms of that question. But in terms of, it leads me to the question, is why wasn't the statement of common ground undertaken with Historic England prior to my request?
Okay, so we had engaged with Historic England. They responded to our Regulation 18 consultation. So at that point, we had not considered that this was a strategic issue that we needed to agree a statement of common ground on. We took their comments on board in the normal way, the responses table, and subsequently, at Regulation 19, we didn't receive a response from Historic England, as they said that they had received our notification. And following that, I suppose, on your request, so before your request, we did have a meeting with Historic England, and we recorded that as a duty to cooperate meeting. And they sent forward some text to us which we didn't necessarily agree with, and we didn't feel that it was really productive to produce a statement of common ground because there wasn't really much that's come there. So one of the comments was to cross-refer to other policies in the conservation and design chapter which we felt, because the plan has to be read as a whole, we didn't think that would actually assist, because it would draw attention to particular policies as opposed to, and give them primacy over the other policies of the plan, which all apply. That was the only bit we could agree on. But then I think when the hearing statement came, the modifications they were seeking became more clarified, and we felt that we could actually reach agreement on those modifications.
Okay. As you are obviously aware, undertaking, working in terms of duty to cooperate, it's not necessarily duty to agree. So it's sort of a moot point whether one should sort of make the decision that we're not going to bother doing it because we're not agreeing. But also in terms of the framework and requirement to undertake statements of common ground, my understanding was that it was all the prescribed bodies as well. So is there a reason why you didn't forward statements of common ground for all the prescribed bodies?
So,
It wasn't, well, I didn't think there was areas of disagreement between us, so we didn't feel it was necessary.
Right,
to be
okay.
honest. And I think that's the honest answer. We obviously had a dialogue with Historic England because
I mean, it's not just historic, I'm just
Yes.
looking at the generalities,
Yeah.
really.
Historic England were really the only prescribed body that really had some issues, but I take your point. We did work with Historic England and probably the benefit of hindsight, maybe we could have done that process slightly differently, but as Mr. Galakis pointed out, I think some of the things we weren't necessarily against, but we didn't feel that they necessarily helped. Perhaps we should have pushed it to the next degree, but we did get there in the end.
Okay, so in terms of, can I characterise your approach to the duty to cooperate then? Well, which I'm sure you, which I just want to be clear in my head, in that in terms of strategic issues, you consider that most of those strategic issues were live, and in terms of any harm from not having undertaken perhaps a strict procedural relation due to cooperate, you would consider that actually there's no harm
Yes.
in response to that. So that's how you characterise the approach that you've taken, that perhaps in retrospect it may have been better to undertake things in a certain way, but at the end of the day, whether actually it's actually happened, which would cause positive harm, but then nothing to really.
Yes, that's definitely the approach we took.
Yeah.
I think it's better to say that we realise that when particular issues come up, then those are when it's useful to clarify through duty to cooperate. But I take your point that actually that's the view we should have taken, and we could have perhaps in benefit hindsight.
Perhaps to take a slightly naive approach. Yeah. Okay. I will bring the gentleman from Hamilton and Council in at this point. Could you introduce yourself, please? Just...
Yes, I'm David Woodward, I'm Senior Planning Policy Officer.
Sorry, you need to speak up, or you
Sorry.
can speak into the room.
I'm David Woodward, I'm Senior Planning Policy Officer at Hamilton and Fulham. I have been involved in some of the duty to cooperate stuff, but not everything. As far as this question goes, as far as we're concerned, obviously we have submitted a statement of common ground, we haven't really voted area. As you stated, the duty to cooperate is not a duty to agree. We do have one outstanding area, which is the approach to buildings at Earls Court. We have set out and submitted a position statement on that matter, which has been submitted as part of the examination documents and should be up on the examination website.
But in terms of just a question
Yes,
of the council's approach to the duty to cooperate.
As far as we're concerned, yes, the duty to cooperate has been met in terms of engaging with us, certainly, definitely.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Um, Okay, and I'd like to move on to question 18, which relates to the ability to actively influence plan making outside of the statutory consultation process. That's the element of my question I'd like to concentrate on. In terms of your when column, in your paragraph, in your table, on tables 9, pages 9, 10 to 13. Much of these duty to cooperate matters seem to have taken place at the consultation process, during the consultation process. So obviously the whole point of doing the duty to cooperate is that you influence the plan making. But if you're doing it at the consultation process, to some extent, where you're undertaking the plan has already been set. So I just wondered if you could explain to me how you have worked with those. I mean, maybe that in terms of strategic issues aren't any that need any discussion outside of it, therefore it's not that surprising that these things are there, but I'd just be interested you approach that.
So we undertook 2 non-statutory consultations, as you know, at the issues and options stage. So clearly at the issues stage, we had not written any policies down, and we were simply identifying the scope of the plan. So as you can see from the table, we had meetings with our neighbouring boroughs, as well as with the GLA, and including the Port of London Authority and others. So everyone, all the prescribed bodies were clearly notified of our intention to produce the plan. And also they could see what the scope of the plan was that we were suggesting, and they could influence what that was. So we did engage quite early on with the prescribed bodies at 2 stages before the Regulation 18 statutory stage of plan making. And I think it was made very clear, particularly with the GLA also taking a very strategic role in London, so that in a sense it brings together those strategic issues which perhaps authorities outside of London may come to an agreement on separately. And I think in addition to these meetings, there are other meetings across London authorities which happen on a very regular basis. So there's the ALBO meetings which take place for development plans, and every authority in those meetings we discuss where we are with our plan making stages. So there is very clear and constant dialogue with London authorities and with the GLA and OPDC, for example.
So sorry, you have to. I'll pick you up in a second. So I've seen the ALBPO is the Association of London Boroughs Planning Officers meeting.
That's
A
right.
good guess, wasn't it?
Yeah.
London Waste.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So we are part of the West London Waste Authorities.
Okay.
As well.
The Gypsy Traveller is GTANA.
Yes, yes. So the GLA as well are kind of leading on work on gypsies and travellers, so they also bring together all the London authorities in that respect. And then there's the London Waste Planning Forum, which is a regular meeting as well, and London places.
Thank you very much. Mr. Woodward, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think what I was going to say really has already been addressed. Actually, all I want to do is reinforce there is an ongoing dialogue between boroughs, definitely, that's happening outside the statutory process, both through the All London Borough process, between offices and eventually really to a lesser extent, but also on the waste aspects as well. There are different forums where engagement does take place, and I certainly think that does present an opportunity for issues to be raised outside the statutory process, and that process is ongoing.
I'd like to go to question 19 now, Much of it is self-explanatory, so thank you very much for your evidence there. I'd just like to get a little bit more about the waste element, because we have, I'd be interested to know a little bit more how that's been considered.
So in respect to the waste,
Sorry, can you introduce?
Manfred Campbell. So in respect of the waste element, we considered it as part of a wider statement from Groundwork.
Sorry, do I put your microphone?
Your sort, it might be, because I find that when we put ours on, it's not.
And as part of the statement, in respect of waste, we've prepared a statement of common ground with Hammersmith and Fulham and the OPDC in respect of securing surplus capacity to help us meet our London Plan waste apportionment. But also waste has been discussed as part of a wider statement of common ground with other London boroughs, which Wandsworth, who's in our waste planning area, is also a part of as well. We've also had conversations with Lambeth and informed them of the intention to share surplus capacity with Hammersmith, and we highlighted that to them quite early on, and we referenced Lambeth in our waste statement of ground as well.
Thank you very much. But my understanding is that it's at the tail end of the plan period that potential issues, is that correct?
Sorry?
At the tail end of the plan period, are there not some potential issues with Cromwell and Waterfalls?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Right, okay, well, that's good. Okay. I'd like now just to move straight on to question 21. And Earls Court. My reading of the Earls Court issue was that Kensington and Chelsea wrote lots of lovely emails to yourself saying, please become involved in this workshop to talk about heights. And due to, for whatever reason, you were unable to meet, trying to take that. But in terms of an evidence base for a large opportunity site, how was that addressed?
To be completely honest with you, it hasn't really. There is very little in the way of sort of working at this point in time. As you'll be aware, the opportunity area has been identified as part of the London Plan, and that's been in part of the 2016 plan as well as the most recent London Plan. There is an ongoing dialogue with regards to Earls Court, and there are a number of elements we do believe will come out of the master planning process. We have an evidence base that extends back to 2018 with our own local plan. We haven't really commenced on a huge amount of work since then. With regards to the workshop that you speak of, I think the issue that we take, I think, is that we feel that coming into that workshop and coming into that process, particularly with regards to the building heights, which obviously is the issue here, the position of Kensington and Chelsea was already concrete and decided, so to speak. And for that reason, the type of engagement that was desired, I think, by KNC was not agreeable to us, so to speak. I think that's really where the issue with the workshop lies.
Okay, so in terms of, got the biggest or second biggest site in the borough. for Kensington and Chelsea?
I think it will be the biggest.
Kensington's the biggest.
Okay.
But there's, okay, there's a second biggest site in Kensington and Chelsea, which straddles your boundary, and which, having spent a few nights staying at the Ibis, I'm quite familiar with as a viewpoint. It's quite large, but you don't have, there's no coherent evidence base for tall buildings, is that what you're saying? There's no work being undertaken on that for both sides in terms of providing an evidence base?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, there is certainly no extensive evidence base on tall building. What we would like is that the policy of it, more generally, that work is, or the tall buildings units are decided by a full urban design analysis that is undertaken in partnership with both boroughs and with development companies to a better extent. And that takes account of the fact that this is, as you say, a large site that straddles both boroughs. The site has to be looked at as one, rather than as two separate parcels. That's firmly our belief.
But in terms of the duty to cooperate, your argument is that you've cooperated, it's just that you haven't been able to put together an evidence base.
Yes, that we, as far as the requirements of the NPPF, paragraph 24 to 27, and the planning practice guidance, yes, we do believe that the duty to cooperate has definitely been met.
But it's an evidence, building an evidence base.
We don't believe to this extent is necessarily required to determine tall buildings on site. We believe that that could be determined at a later stage, particularly in terms of maximum heights, and that's really where our issue lies. I'm very cautious of getting too deep into the argument on it.
Yeah, yes, I understand that. I mean, I'm just trying to, obviously today's duty to cooperate session relates to whether the regulation, the legal test has been met. And you're firmly of the view that the legal test has been met, yet the evidence base doesn't exist. And you haven't worked together on that evidence base.
Specifically with regards to tall buildings at Earls Court.
Before I come back to the council, I'd just like to ask some other questions. In terms of transport and other matters in relation to Earls Court, would you consider that those issues should have been discussed or have been discussed, or are you working actively together?
Those issues, there have been a dialogue and there is an ongoing dialogue with regard to Earls Court, and I believe those matters are regularly discussed. I'm afraid I can't go too much into the evidence base now because I'm not entirely informed with that regard, but yes, we do believe that that definitely be discussed.
Okay, I'm just looking at one of the reps that had come in, and there's discussion about health, education, parks, open spaces, and local services. So in terms of those matters, you're content that the duty to cooperate has been, as far as you're aware, has been.
Yes, those, and as I say, there is an ongoing dialogue with regard to Earls Court, and for the most part there is quite considerable agreement. The issue relates to tall buildings, and ultimately, I think that also feeds into the quantum. But as far as the duty to cooperate is concerned, yes, that's met here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Woodruff. Kensington and Chelsea could come back issues are raised, particularly in relation to the reduction of an evidence space.
Yesterday, Madam Inspector, we gave our timetable for the production of the new local plan, and as I said, we made a public declaration that we would produce an accelerated new local plan within 3 years, and that's what we delivered on. Clearly, as part of the local plan, the new London plan was adopted in 2021. The policy in question, I think D9 came in regarding height, and also making it very clear to be in conformity with the London plan that we had to deal with a matter of height within the borough, and also deal with, specifically with opportunity areas and specifying maximum heights. On that basis, and clearly we needed to have sound evidence base to assess what heights might be appropriate. We felt we had no choice but to go ahead and do that work. We commissioned consultants to come on board and do that heights analysis for us, looking at views not just in Kensington and Chelsea, but in other boroughs as well. So it was a heights analysis that was taken into account views in Hammersmith and Fulham. The conversation, and given the timetable, we had to go ahead. Clearly, Hammersmith and Fulham are in a slightly different place to us. I think their last local plan was adopted in February 2018, and I think I'm right in saying you're yet to commence publicly on a new local plan review, and clearly that 2018 local plan predated policy D9 of the London plan. So when we had the conversation with Hammersmith and Fulham, what I recall, it was felt at that point, and clearly maybe things have moved on a bit, but it was felt at that point that they would perhaps take a more reactive approach at the time and see how things panned out with regard to how the Earls Court came forward. That was not to say that necessarily at some point in the future they wouldn't consider doing height study. That may well be the case. But in terms of our timetable, we had to progress with that piece of work, and we did so. So, given the choreography of how this has come about, I'm not sure that we could have done anything else. Hammersmith and Fulham have made it very clear that the duty to cooperate has been fulfilled. So I think this is just a matter that I understand where they're coming from. But as I've said, I think as far as we're concerned, we did the height study that we had to do for our opportunity area. It did include looking at views, not just in Kensington and Chelsea, but taking views from elsewhere. And I think that's where we are.
I think I'd just like to add that the issue was raised quite late in the day as well by Hammersmith and Fulham's in response to the Regulation 18 consultation. Clearly the evidence base was out at the time, and I think during the statement of common ground meetings, the duty to cooperate meetings, we had raised that we are producing such an evidence. So at that point, it was indicated to us that further views analysis were needed from Hammersmith and Fulham within their boundaries, then we would have been very receptive to those comments and taken them on board. They were not really raised until we reached Regulation 19 consultation, just in terms of understanding further impacts from their boundaries. And it was certainly not something that was household due to the Regulation 18 consultation response.
I mean, that's something that, whenever you do this work, eventually you're going to have to do a joint study, aren't you? It seems to me. Now, whether it's a duty to cooperate matter or not, it's a moot point. But it's something that I'll probably be raising at the matter 4 session, which you give some South will be attending.
Yeah, we will be ready for matter 4 and matter 8 as well, which will be.
Because, I mean, clearly you need a joint. As far as I can see, you can't build development site without a joint open space in terms of such a large line. But that's something that I will park in my mind's eye,
Okay, yeah.
and you'll have that in your mind's eye, as far as Ethan shall
Yes, okay.
comment, but it's,
We could respond now, but I thank you for bringing up this issue.
yeah, I mean, obviously I've got to consider whether I see it as being a duty to cooperate issue. But I've heard what Mr. Woodward has said, so I can bear that. Because, clearly it is a question of mutual benefit for the neighbouring authority, for each authority. It's not a question of an authority doing it on their own.
And I suppose, just, I know we're going to talk about this tomorrow in Matter Inspector, but I think I can only say that we do have a duty and are charged through the London Plan to set maximum heights and opportunity areas. We've done that work. So clearly we've done what we needed to do. We've got a statement of general conformity with the London Plan from the GLA. They're satisfied with the work that we've done. And therefore perhaps I respect that it makes perfect sense for the two authorities to work closely together. Having said that, we've got a local plan that we want to get through and be found sound, and we met the requirements that we needed to do that, including being in general conformity with the London Plan. So we have got a height analysis in the what's called opportunity area, which we did have to do. It was a requirement. So I just really invite the inspector to obviously bear that in mind, because I think we wouldn't want to be in a position, and I don't think we should be in a position, where we would have to necessarily revisit all that work and set different heights. Well, we may have to set different heights, but what I'm saying is we've done work, and we've got heights, maximum heights in the plan as we were charged to do. So we've done that. So I think that's what I'm saying.
I'm not going to respond in detail to those comments. I think that tomorrow's hearings, again, at Matter 8, which buildings generally. But what I would say is, with regard to duty to operate, we have this discussion is ongoing. It does continue with regards to tall buildings. The duty to operate is not a duty to agree, as you have already said. This is a matter where we simply just don't agree with KMC. As far as the duty to cooperate is concerned, we do believe that everything has been met, and we do believe that quite firmly.
Okay. Thank you very much. On that positive note, I will close today's sorry, I can't take any questions if you've not registered to.
You did cover the question that we're putting, and the particular one we're interested in.
Sorry, I can't, if you've not said that you're attending the session, I can't take it. So, unless anyone else from the table wishes to raise something, I will close this morning's session, and we will resume at 2 p.m. when we will look at matter 3. Thank you very much for everyone's time. Thank you.
There is a coffee available, I think, if you want to.
Oh, yes, yes. So like.